Welcome to Lesson 3. Today is April 8, which means that according to the course schedule, we're starting Lesson 3, which is about evaluating research about social problems. So as you study that lesson, you'll be looking at how we use research to understand social problems. And you're going to get to do a bit of research yourself because the article review project also starts with the Lesson 3 module. So that project is really divided into two parts. Part 1 is where you find an article and using your college library website, you need to find a refereed journal article about a social problem of your choice, and you're going to submit it for part 1. And then part 2, you're going to write a short paper that is a summary and reflection paper about that article. So the article review project is really going to span Lesson 3 and Lesson 4. And you should be working on part 1 while you're working on Lesson 3, starting today, April 8th. And then you should be working on part 2 when you're working on Lesson 4, starting next Monday, April 15. And then you can see the deadlines. There's the deadline for submitting your article, that's part 1, is April 12th on Friday. And then the following Friday is the deadline for submitting the summary and reflection paper. Okay? So let's take a quick look at the module in the course. Here's the very first module at the top. I simply clicked on modules and it took me to the module page so I can scroll down. There's module 1 that we looked at where we talked about the basic sociological concepts. Module 2 you have just finished, which was about defining social problems. And as you did that, one of the important things you should have learned is here, Weber's 4 criteria for defining a social problem. Because when you go to look for the research journal article on a social problem, you want to be sure that the problem that you're thinking about actually qualifies as a social problem, and you've learned how to judge that in this lesson too. So let me just click on that real quickly, bring up that document, that one, Weber's 4 criteria for defining social problems. And it's pretty simple. Social problems are social in origin, social in damage, social in definition, and social in solution. And in that article, it explains to you in detail what social in origin means. Okay. Then there's a section on social in damage, then a section on social in definition, and finally a section on social in solution. So keep that in mind when you're looking for your article on a social problem. It should be a social problem and not some other kind of problem, right? Or not some other kind of phenomenon in society. It has to qualify as a social problem by those 4 criteria. Okay, so then you'll notice that in the module outline, we go from module 1, lesson 1 module to the lesson 2 module. And then before you get to the lesson 3 module, there is a separate module called Research Article Review Project. And the reason that that appears before lesson 3 is because you're going to do part 1 of that project during the week that you're doing lesson 3, and part 2 of that project during the week that you're doing lesson 4. But you'll find all the information about how to do the project in its own separate module called Research Article Review Project. So basically you should start working on that today, April 8th, and you should be done with it completely by the end of the lesson 4 module, which will be 2 weeks. from today. Okay. Now, the instructions are there that you can look at and read for yourself. I'm going to pull them up just for a minute. And there are copious instructions for you to help you to do the project. So the project was mentioned in the syllabus, and Appendix B in the syllabus shows you how I'll be grading the project. Okay. So it's got two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is submit a refereed journal article. So to do that, you're going to have to go to the library website for the college and look for a refereed journal article on a social problem. Now, if you need some help using the library databases, then get help from a librarian, because they're very excited about helping you all do that. And we appreciate them very much. So it's a very important skill that if you haven't already learned it, you may already be very familiar with it and have learned it and used it in other courses. But if you haven't, you will. You will in this course, and you will before you graduate. You'll be doing that perhaps quite a bit. So it's a really great thing for us to be doing in this course too, to give you some experience with it. So you're going to use those, and I have created a video that's in this module that will show you how to do that. Okay, where I actually did a video of going to the library website, and I show you in the video how to use the search engines to find an article, how to narrow it down to those articles that are most relevant, and so that you don't have thousands of articles to try to somehow figure out which one you want, but you can use the tools of the search engine to narrow it down. And you may be familiar with looking for information online on the internet elsewhere, and that you may be able to find some legitimate refereed journal articles on the internet, but very often when you do find them, they'll be behind a paywall. So you'll find a good article, and you're like, oh, I'd like to use this article, and it'll only show you the first page, and then they want you to pay an enormous amount, what I consider an enormous amount of money, just to be able to download and use that article. And you don't have to do that, because the college has already paid to use the databases to have the vast majority of those articles available to you. And that's a really wonderful thing. And they're also available electronically, so you can easily download them from wherever you are and print them or read them at your leisure. Okay. So it's to your advantage to use the library tools for that. It's okay to look other places. If you find something, maybe you're very familiar with using the other search tools on the internet, and you find something maybe on Google Scholar, and then you could jot down the title and the author and go to the library and see if you can get it for free. But wherever you find it, whether it's at the library website or another place, you need to be sure that it's a refereed research journal article. And what that means, sometimes they call it peer-reviewed. And in the library search engine, they have a box you can check that will only present to you or what the computer thinks are peer-reviewed. So that's important, okay? And I've got some information about that in the lesson module to help explain that too. So when you do find your article, you're going to have to save it as a PDF file, and you're going to have to rename it, because a lot of times the websites, the library website or whatever, is going to name it something like content.pdf. Well, suppose you download an article today and it saves it on your computer as content.pdf, and then tomorrow you go download a different article from the library and it also names it content PDF. What your computer is going to do is erase the first one and overwrite it with the second one of the same name, when you really wanted both articles. So you have to rename it. So when you get ready to download it, you rename it, and I recommend that you use this formula that I've given you here to do that, where you just use the author's last name, the year it's published, and a few words about the article that reminds you of what it's about, and save it as a PDF file so you can read about how to do that. And then this part 2 is where you write the summary and reflection paper. Okay, and it's going to have 2 major headings. The first heading is going to be summary, and that's literally what it says. It's the summary of the article. It should be brief or concise. So the typical journal article is going to be 25 to 35 pages long. But I'm not expecting a lengthy summary from you. I'm expecting maybe you could summarize it perhaps in 1 page. Easy. Okay? And one way to do that is if you realize that all journal articles basically follow this same common outline right here. And that outline is that there'll be an introduction and what they call review of the literature. Now, sometimes they name these parts of the outline a little bit different names than what I've put here, but this is about 95% of the time, this is what you're going to see. It's just the way that research is written up in the Academy worldwide. So there'll be a review of the literature. That means literature, by literature, we mean existing research that's been done in the world on that topic. So the author of the research study you're reading about in the particular journal article is going to kind of give a really brief review of all the important studies that have been done on that so far, because what their research is going to do is add to all of that research that's been done so far. Then they're going to have a section where they call methodology, and they'll have the hypothesis in there under the methodology section, and it'll tell what methods the researcher used to conduct their research, what their research question will be in that section. Then there'll be a major section called findings, and all the findings tell there's absolutely zero opinion in findings. It would be, if it was a survey that asked, what's your favorite peanut butter, creamy, crunchy, extra crunchy, or extreme crunchy. Extreme crunchy, I guess that's where you just have peanuts in a jar, but, and people indicated on the survey what their favorite peanut butter was, then the findings would be just the facts. 23% selected creamy, 43% selected crunchy, etc., like that. Just very much the facts without any interpretation of what they mean. And then the next section is called discussion, and that's where the author discusses what the findings mean relative to their hypothesis, relative to the study that they're trying to do. And then usually there's a conclusion, and there's always a reference list in referee journal articles. So one of the ways you can tell a referee journal article from those that are not, there's always a pretty considerable length list of references given at the end of it. So, but think about it like this. If just about every research article that you read is going to have this basic outline, that's the way you could do your summary. You could say a word or two about, or a sentence or two about each of these sections, right? And that will be a summary of the whole article. All right, then the second part of that, your major outline, is going to be reflection. And that's where you write about what you think about the article. And you've got more flexibility in the reflection section. And I put some ideas here to help you along in thinking about it, okay? So then you're going to use APA formatting, and I'm not asking you to do an abstract, so APA formatting minus the abstract, okay? So just skip the abstract part and don't add an abstract to your paper. You don't need it. The paper's too short for that. How long should the paper be? Well, it could be a 3-page paper, okay? So you might have a page for your summary and a page or two for your reflection, and you're done, okay? So I'm expecting it to be concise. So don't worry about how many, there's no specific page requirement. If you need more pages than that to make your point and to adequately describe, the article and your reflections, fine. That's okay. But I think that it shouldn't take too many pages. And you're going to just use APA style guide for citing anything that you paraphrase or uh, summarize or quote. Okay, just use those guidelines for doing that, and you'll have a reference list at the end of yours that shows it. Of course, the article that you're reviewing will be in your reference list, and if you used any other articles or any other sources whatsoever, you put them in the reference list as well. Okay, now, so here it is in a nutshell: guidelines for the research article review. Boom. And that's a very concise one, telling you how to do it. And there's even an example where it shows you a facsimile of a page. There's the title page. Then you come to the next page and we have your major headings, your summary, and your reflection. Now you may have more than, I only put a couple of sentences in this example so I can make it fit on one page, right? But you're going to have your summary, your reflection. You could have subheadings under that if you want, that's fine, but you got to have those major headings, and then references at the end using APA style. Okay. I also included here, and it's in the syllabus as Appendix B, the criteria by which I'm grading it. So 10% is going to be whether you did the APA correctly. Grammar and spelling, other proofreading issues, going to be 10%. The quality of the article that you choose will be 10%. It must be a refereed journal article. If articles that are about opinion will not be accepted. So you'd get a 0 if you use the wrong kind of article. And that's very important. The librarian will help you with that, and if you are in doubt about it, then ask. Okay, but I have a special section in the module to show you how to tell what is a refereed article and what's not. Then you got your summary section, that's going to be 30% of the grade, the reflection section 30%, and then issues of submission, submitting on time, etc. Okay, so there you have those instructions, and they're found in that module between lesson 2 and lesson 3, called the Research Article Review Project. Okay, the first thing there is that list of instructions. Then there's a document I made about finding scholarly articles. There's how to tell the difference between a popular article versus a scholarly article, so you can make that distinction when you're looking for an article. And I made a video here. If you click on this, it'll take you to a video I made where I demonstrate how to find an article using the RBC Library tools. Okay. Also, I've given you some information on plagiarism, so you understand that. And on the APA style, I've given you just, there is a whole book about the APA style, which you could check out in the library, but I've really given you the tools here, what you need, everything you need in these handouts. All right, and then at the end of that module, there's a link to submit a copy of your article in PDF format. That's part 1, and that's due by April 12, Friday. Then there's the next link to submit your paper that you write, right? And that's got to be done before April 19th. So that's going on at the same time that the Lesson 3 module is happening and the Lesson 4 module is happening.